Hi everybody, it's Lauren, and I am here to talk about my February tarot decks, the decks that I used, and my experiences. And I had some really interesting things happen I'm looking forward to sharing with you. So I worked with 3 decks this month, and the first one is one I did talk about last month a little bit, and that's the Art of Love Tarot. I've been working with this regularly throughout the month, and on February 1st, I pulled one card just to see what the energy or the atmosphere I'd be working in for the month, and it was the 6 of Air. I'm going to call it Air. They call it Angels, but this would be the Air suit. So, you know, the 6s are, to me, always kind of interesting because their 6s come in and it's time to create balance, and you never know which way, in my experience, it's going to go with the 6s. It's not the kind of balance that you see in the 2, where you have 2 opposing ideas or something balancing. This is balance that's long been needed. And so sometimes when you feel there's too much balance, things can move a little more slowly than you'd like. I've had that experience with this card over the years. Also, you know, let me just give you a perfect example with this 6 of Air and how it's been playing out. One of the many ways it's been playing out for me this month is that I have no internet connection, and you know, I'm just going to make this video on my little mini pad and go to the coffee shop to upload it, because in my apartment right now I haven't had a connection. So that's sort of that balance that becomes stasis. However, it's been an important balance for me, because when I look at the last several years and spending so much time researching and learning on the internet, and it's taken a lot of time away from me. So I've had a lot more time. I've gone more deeply into the practices that are very important to me this year, meditation practices, prayer practices. All that is showing a balance that falls under the you know, the aspects of this 6 of Air. And you know, it's also a little paradoxical in a way, because the 6 of Air shows that we're moving into stillness, or moving into quietness. So we have the movement and the stillness, quietness. And again, that's something I've felt throughout the month greatly, as I said, had a lot more time to work on my meditation practices. Also, this card has come up for me throughout the month. So it wasn't just February 1st. But I kept drawing it. I would say, I bet it was twice a week. And the last week in February only once. But it really played a big part. And I also saw it come up in other decks as well. Just a couple more things about this deck. Now, I'm going to say that years ago, I would not have worked with this deck, because I was very interested more in the occult, esoteric aspects. And you know, as I've changed, you know, I've changed and my perspective. I've worked a lot with the plant spirit, you know, the guardians of the plants, and I've talked about that many times, and that type of meditation, do a lot of healing work. So there, you know, shifts do occur in our life, and I'm finding that the softness and the sort of the, there is like a spiritual atmosphere in the artwork. And that is really a good connection for me to be making with the tarot right now. I do want to say, though, I mentioned this last time, there are a couple of problems, like the titles on, the keywords on the cards do not always work. And here's a prime example. This is the 8 of Hearts, so this would be the 8 of Cups. And look what they wrote on the bottom. It's codependency. Now, I've had this card come up for myself and for another friend in a reading, and that codependency didn't fit the reading at all, but the image did. So this is the kind of deck that's, you know, you're working with all the aspects of the deck, the artwork. Sometimes the words work, sometimes not. But all in all, I really enjoy this deck. I think it's beautiful and easy to work with if you're working with someone. I have a friend right now who's very ill, and I thought, you know, I don't want to bring a deck that is going to show swords and blood, or death in the traditional way that we see in the tarot, because she's really going through a lot of chemo and hard times. So this deck was perfect, and I just want to show you what the death card looks like. And it's called the Release, and they also wrote Metamorphosis on the bottom. I like it. For a non-traditional style deck, I think it's great, and I think this card, in the way it's shown here, adds a little more kind of, it expands the card a little bit in readings, and I really do like it. I want to just show you a couple of readings that I had, just for myself, three card readings I pulled out that I had during the month. The deck is very good at just simply reading the energy. So here are two examples. One of them, this was right after I did a meditation. A lot of times I like to just pull some cards to see what elements will come up in the deck and things like that. So this is what came up after a meditation. So this would be the king of the earth element. The next card was actually the knight of the same element. Just so beautiful. Look at that. And you can see he looks like he's meditating. And the last card was the retreat, contemplation. So that was just a really good, simple read of the energy, and it brought in the earth element, which was very appropriate for the type of meditation that I was doing. Now later in the month, okay, I had another, this was slightly different. Let me show you the cards that came up. First was the Eight of Trees, which again is the earth suit. Next was the Six of Trees. Now this word, they have receiving under there. Now I found that is often appropriate in a reading. It really connects. And the last one was the Six of Swords. So this was a reading that came up just before I had a very intuitive message come in about some friends that are having an issue, and I was really helping them out. It's with their dog, and he's passing and all this, and I had a real strong intuition come in, and it was very good. So that's where that receiving came in, and it shows this Eight of Trees. It says skill, receiving, and again the Six of Swords. So being quiet and allowing that information to come in. So it's been a great reader, and I really like it. I think it's a wonderful deck. Okay, enough of that, right? Let's move on. So it was February, and I wanted to do something fun with my tarot practice. Not everything's so heavy. And, I think of February, and it's kind of a romantic month for some. So I worked with the Tarot of Sexual Magic, and I really did have a lot of fun using this deck. Had it for quite a while. I like the colors, the red colors, and now this again is a deck that the artwork is quite different than you would normally see in a tarot deck. I pulled out some of the majors. I thought you might want to take a look at them. So when I work with this deck, I enjoy the imagery, but I often will use the title of the card, the traditional suit and element, or if it's a major, I kind of do need to use that. Because as you see, most of the imagery is, it's very romantic. Here's the Death card. And because it is so romantic, it doesn't always fit, with the general, traditional meaning of the card. But it's a pleasure to work with. And I think it would be a lot of fun to work with this deck, in a playful way with someone, with a partner. And here's the World card. And I mostly did, 3-card readings, kept it simple, and I have to say I got good readings. I did just some non-question readings, sort of daily draws with it. And the readings were fine. and very accurate. Okay, so one more thing I wanted to do this month. It was around maybe the 9th or 10th of February. I really started feeling the pull. It's time for me to start working on masculine energy and father, particularly father energy, to heal. Because I had done a lot of work the last 6 or 7 months with mother energy, and that has been wonderful for me doing that work. Time to work on the father, I thought. So what I decided to do is to pick a deck where I really like and connect with the people in the deck. So for me, that one of those decks, the deck I chose is the Arthurian Tarot. And boy, I just like this deck very, very much. Every time I pick it up, I think about Lisa, and I always send her a little gratitude, just because I'm so grateful that she brought this to the fore, and kind of that's why I bought the deck. So what I decided to do was to get the deck and pick out the male dominant cards. Now I know that's a very unconventional way to work with the tarot, but I wanted to really work with that male and father aspect. So I pulled out the kings and the knights and some of the majors that have very male cards, such as the Magician, the Sun card. And all in all, it turned out to be 16 cards. So this is what happened. I did this late at night. I made the decision, chose the deck, I pulled out the cards, and I put them aside. I did not do a draw. I just thought, let me put it aside, think about it. So I went to sleep, and I had a dream, and this is just an incredible healing situation that came up. And in my dream, I saw the King of Cups, which in this deck is called the Grail King. And he visited me in my dream. And he was sitting on the ground, and I was sitting across from him, just like you see here. And he handed me a cup, a big brass cup. He just handed it right over to me. It had filled with water, and the idea was for me to drink out of it. So as I took a sip out of it, I saw that in the cup there was a sprig of pine in the cup, and that was the end of the dream. So when I got up and I thought about it, I mean, there were many things that rolled through my mind, you know, the cleansing and nourishing qualities of the pine. But because I work with remedies, you know, I thought, wow, I know pine is a Bach flower remedy. And of course I do have it, and this is what it looks like if you've never seen a Bach flower remedy. And you can see there's a little glare there, but it does say pine on it. So what I know about pine, what I had remembered is that it helps move out the energy if there's been a lot of a person that's very hard on themselves, right? Self-reproach is how it's worded in the old text. And then what I did is I tested it. I tested the remedy to see if it resonated with me. And when I say that, what I mean is I put it in the palm of my hand, and then I got one of my pendulums, and I tested it with a pendulum, and it came very strongly positive that I needed to work with this remedy. So the last thing I did that morning was I went and I picked out my, I have also a Bach flower oracle deck. And I pulled this out. I wanted to take a look at the book and the card of the pine, because they sort of personalize the messages a little more in the oracle deck as opposed to, you know, the old texts. So here is the card. And what the book says, it talks about forgiveness, and it talks about forgiving the child, or perhaps that inner child, and it talks about forgiving the father. Now that could be an actual father, or it could be sort of that dominant sense in your mind that's causing that self-blame and self-reproach. And then it says that once the forgiveness has taken place, then you can experience the benevolence of the Father. Okay, this blew me away because, as I said, This was my foray into working with Father Energy, and I hadn't even picked a card from that deck yet. So there it is once again, and you can see there's the dad in the background there and the children. So I don't know, I'm so touched to have had that dream. And the funny thing is that Grail King has never come up for me all month in a reading, only in my dream. So what I did with this is I did not want to choose a card every day because this was not a daily draw. This was, who am I going to be working with? So I would say maybe about 2, at the most 3 times a week, I drew one of the men from this deck. 90% of my draws, it was this handsome man here. It was the Sword King. Now, to me, the faces in this deck, the way they're portrayed, are wise and kind and very easy for me to kind of communicate with, right? That's why I chose this deck. So as I started working more and more with this Sword King, some of the things that happened for me was I started to think about him when my mind was going, you know, laying there maybe again different nights and thinking about all the things I have to do and want to do and blah blah blah, and I stopped myself because I thought about this Sword King, and I thought about having the discipline to brush that away. I thought about the peace and the clarity that this masterful king brings with that air element. And the thing is, it really worked for me. When I drew in the energy, it worked, and all the thoughts quieted down. Also, you know, as I had mentioned, I did a lot. I mean, I've been doing meditations for years, but I really did increase my practice this month. And I think the Sword King was also energetically helping me through that. And I think, you know, it's a good start to healing that Father energy, because when you're working on like clearing the mind, I do believe that in the coming months, that clearing and that understanding the thoughts that are not accurate, right, will start to help go down, you know, more into the emotional realm in the heart chakra, and then healing that aspect of Father as well. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen. We'll see. But I have been taking, again, I want to mention, I have been taking that pine remedy because that, you know, and I could see where I've been a little bit easier on myself. And it's, this whole experience has been a blessing. And I think it also shows that when we connect with a deck, that without even looking at the image, you know, it's become part of us, and a very meaningful part of us, and that therefore I had that dream, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that has had an experience like that. So I do want to continue with this again throughout the months. Now I do want to try to go through my decks and work with different decks each month. So what I probably will do is choose another deck where I really do enjoy the people and separate some of the men out again, even though it's hard to put the Arthurian away because it's so special. Okay, one more thing I wanted to talk about is I received a lovely, beautiful gift from a friend, and it's so special and rare for me to get a tarot deck as a gift. So my good friend that I actually got to know here on YouTube sent me the Tarot of the Secret Forest. Now, I'm not sure, but I do believe that this artist is the same as the artist who did the Fairy Lights Tarot, which, again, Lisa did a very nice walkthrough of that deck. I think it's the same person. But it's a really interesting deck, and I think it's going to be wonderful as spring approaches here in this part of the world, and we have the great blossoming, which I'm so looking forward to. I love to see the trees and blossom. So I'll just show you a few cards. I only did one reading with it because I'm sort of holding it, you know, till next month, and the Six of Swords came up when I did a reading. So I will work with it likely in March, and I'll come back and tell you my experiences with it. And one pretty cool thing about the deck is the backs are a black and white image of the cards themselves. So each is each is going to be a little different. I think it's a beautiful deck, and thank you, Miss Beatrice, for this lovely gift. Well, my friends, thank you for spending some time with me, and I will see you at the end of March. Blessings to you all. I hope you will enjoy this month and find something to be excited about throughout the month of March. Bye for now.